Sign up to Rough Trade Club and get the best new music delivered to your door, free shipping and benefits in store. Don't miss the benefits of Rough Trade Club, from getting Rough Trade's Album of the Month in an exclusive pressing delivered directly to your door, to free shipping on all your orders and discounts at the bar and on second-hand records in store. Use the voucher code CLUB101POD to get a third off your first 3 months. Sign up now at roughtrade.com/club and get the most out of Rough Trade. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties, and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
Hey there. Did you know Baker's always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower than low prices? And when you download the Baker's app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Baker's today. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
It's coming in. Christmas, New Year's, like a Neanderthal on a zip wire, swinging over. Hey, cheers for listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs this year. I appreciate it. I love doing these episodes and interviewing people about their lives. Doing a bit of a, how does that work with bands, musicians, and affording it, basically. It's getting a bit quiet now, and to tell you the truth, I got a couple of episodes, but I'm going to save them for January, and I thought, how could I keep on sticking to my 2 episodes a week rule? And I think, and the solution is to do some reruns. There are going to be lots of people. There are going to be more people than less who didn't catch it the first time around. So here is someone who's the face, the voice, the songwriter of a record that's in so many people's top albums of 2023, Ian Shelton from Militarie Gun. Life Under the Gun is the album that came out this year. It's their first proper debut. Great record, great sounds, great energy. I saw them in London a few weeks ago, and it was wicked. You know, there are some shows where there's just such a buzz in the room, and when that energy happens, you just got to be there for it, and that's exactly what was happening seeing Militarie Gun in London the other day. So look, here's our chat, mine and Ian's chat from earlier this year, just before the album came out. Shout out to our sponsors, 2000 Trees Festival, who have announced their 2024 lineup. The Gaslight Anthem are headlining the Thursday. Manchester Orchestra, Boston Manor, Better Lovers, Gouge Away. So many great bands playing. The Mysterines, Hot Mulligan. So if you want to get your tickets, up until the end of the year, the tickets are 30% off. Head to 2000trees.co.uk/tickets and get those festival tickets cheaper than you ever will. 2000 Trees, by the way, is an ace independent festival here in the UK, in Cheltenham, just a couple of hours away from London. They just won Best Medium-Sized Festival for the second year running. So, I don't know, it sounds pretty good, right? 2000 Trees, it's Wednesday through to Saturday. You go there, you have a great time, you see some incredible bands, you leave with a good feeling. What else could you want? 2000trees.co.uk/tickets. Go get them. Okay, before we get into this chat, I've got Rebecca from Eka and also Ampolo here. Ampolo is the first all-in-one app connecting a global community of musicians to practice, record, and collaborate. And there's some new features coming on there, aren't there, Rebecca? You can start making money as an artist. Other artists can remix your songs. What's going on over there?
So we've heard people say before that the magic of the app is the fact that you're able to upload any music, remove your instrument and play along so you feel part of the song. I mean, there's really no feeling like it when you're playing with one of your favourite songs and you feel like you're part of that band. We have revolutionary tools which allow you to layer your audio and video recordings to share and collaborate with others in your own real-time project. And that's all thanks to our AI music separation.
All right, Ampolo, download it now. Right, let's do this thing. Ian Shelton, Militarie gun, the man behind the ooh. He's a nice guy, he's got a friendly face. Here's Ian Shelton of Militarie gun. 101 part-time. Look, I started this show a couple of years ago because, like so many people that got inspired by rock music, punk rock, bands that are just doing their own thing, and tour dates and just being teenagers and seeing older siblings do it and just being like, fuck yeah, I have to do that. I'm compelled to do that. That's the start of a sometimes treacherous life in terms of prioritizing that stuff, and when I was on tour a lot in my 20s, I'd come home and just feel pretty lost. And I was pretty awful at articulating it then. I'm probably a little bit better at articulating it now. Just that kind of what it does to your identity. And so I just got really inspired to start interviewing bands and artists about how not just like how they do it, but like their mindset of it, right? When I was younger, discovered book your own fucking life, and that was a big inspiration because it was like, oh, this is like a resource that people are sharing about this one thing that connects us that we all love. And I think the thing that strikes me now, I'm 32 and it strikes me more now than ever, and I'm sort of inspired by all this shit now more than ever, is the way that different people approach it. Everyone's got a different story, everyone's coming from a different place and have different experiences along their way to figure out how they do it, because there's no real path, is there? There's no real route to trying to figure out what you're doing. I guess you're growing in public, right? What does that when I say all that shit, what does that make you think of?
I mean, it just makes me think of the sprawling journey to right now. Like I went on my first tour at 17 years old and basically have lived my life in accordance to the concept of the next time I go on tour, like ever since then. And then the only time that was ever broken up was the pandemic. I only ever have worked jobs that I can quit or leave because I needed to go on tour, and I kept saying I'd go back to I'd go to community college and do all these things, but then there was a tour, so I never ever went back, so it's this definitely there's no singular path through all this from what I can tell.
Did you get pretty good at the white lie of going to those job interviews and being like, yeah, I'm here for the full ride, baby, I'm here?
No, because the thing was I never was willing to lie, so I was like, I usually got in via friends at wherever I worked. Like I was a truck driver for my friend's dad's company when I was freaking 18, and then I went into screen printing and then into a different screen printing job. And then I did video for city council meetings. So it's just like these very weird. And before that, I was a house painter. So it was like, it's whatever it took to do the shitty 2-week tour that, easily could have done something else with my life, but for some reason I was obsessed with that instead.
I can see you as a house painter. I can see you in some like dad Levi's, a bit of paint, bit of white paint going down your side, going for, having a cup of tea, going for a lager beer afterwards. I can see you doing that.
Maybe I should quit and go back,
Hey, screen printing's a classic one, right? Because screen printers, if your friends and your peers are playing music, there's that, like being a music producer, there's always going to be a need for merch.
Definitely. And the thing that we did at the time was Macklemore. Like, we were the screen printing shop for Macklemore and for Fucked, F-U-C-T, the streetwear company. So
right.
It was a very odd thing. And it was like this weird thing where like kind of celebrities would be coming in just hang out in the screen printing shop. Like really random. I feel like everything that I've done has been just so random like that. So...
Are you pretty good in the workplace, do you think? Are you polite? Are you nice? Have you got patience for fools?
Yes. I'm patient as shit. I started, working really young in that I just was very motivated to get CDs and all these other things. So I was going to neighbors' houses just with a lawnmower, knocking on strangers' doors when I was really young. So
you're an entrepreneur.
It was the type of thing where, I kind of had a sense of professionalism from a young age because I figured I had to like entice people I didn't know. And now thinking back on it, I'm like, oh, that's like the best experience ever of like my life is centered on meeting strangers for the most part. So,
it's like when you do that and you get used to the hustle or whatever word you want to call it, the basically cold calling, the going up to people, introducing yourself, asking them if they want their service. I mean, that is basically booking tours, right?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think about, there's two things that I think would be essential to learning to book a tour, which was knocking on, cold calling people. And the other was back in when you used to have to call people's houses and talk to their parents before you talk to your friend, you're like, the parents would always kind of remark on how polite I was. They'd be like, oh, wow. Okay. And so those processes of like the nervousness of dialing the new friend's number and then having to talk to their parents for the first time and all these things, it sets you up for when, at the time MySpace was how I booked my first tours. And, it was, hey, hello, I'm, like the introductory thing, which always felt awkward, but I had experience in.
I write emails a lot. I was a written journalist before this, and now I'm asking guests like you to come onto this. And, writing an email, it's a bit of a, there's only one way to do a good email, and that's to be polite. And I don't care how many exclamation marks there are. I don't care if there's full stop. You can be very polite in the first line of an email.
Definitely. I mean, I hate when people are short on email and...
You're not a fan of booking agents then?
I'm never on the booking agent emails these days, so I don't know. But I definitely have critiqued our some business people, because I'm like, hey, come on, we could throw a couple more words in the email here.
Hey, that's a good point. I was going to ask you something akin to this later, but when Militarie Gun and Regional Justice Center before, when you're working with different people, friends or people you've just met, when you're working with other people, there's always going to be an element that they're going to represent you, because they're going to be speaking to people on behalf of you. Is that something that you've had a bit of a journey with? I've been in experiences when I've been like, I cannot believe that guy that we work with spoke to you like that. And now I'm not implying that's happened to you, but there's considerations to be taken there, right?
There is. I mean, ultimately, as far as on the business side of music, is just first and foremost, it's like, do I think somebody understands what we're going for, and there definitely is the question of like, does this person accurately represent me outside of me being in the room? Obviously, you're never there. You just have to trust. I mean, that's it. Yeah. Is the trust element, which hopefully I've done a good job of trusting the right people. I believe I have. I truly care about the people on our team, And the big thing was was DIY for so long. Like the thing is, like I started booking tours when I was 17, and I booked every tour I did up until 2021, and because of that, and I booked shows for other bands, and I've booked tours for bands that I wasn't even in. Like, so I served as basically a fake agent for artists that that didn't have agents, that I just was like, I want to help you get on tour. Yeah. And because of that, like, I've never really had the DIY punk hang up. Cause I'm like, I've proven my shit, you know, like I'm still DIY regardless of how much I actually have to do myself cause I come from it. I bled it for so long. And, there's people who are better at doing it than I am. Like, that's the thing is, I think a lot of people struggle with the concept of doing things just because, or, you know, just wanting control. And there's times when you should step back and admit that other people are better at doing things than you are.
I've got sort of two things that spring to mind with that. The first one was when I realized that punks could be pricks too. Because up until that time, I was like, all punk rockers are my friends. You know, I must have been about 14, 15, and they used to put on some sound systems in Finsbury Park and some, you know, great crust bands that are still going today, you know, like Conflict and Inner Terrestrials, some ska punk stuff. There's some great sort of crusty ska punk in London. It's all in the same world, you know. And I was wearing like a NoFX t-shirt. And some guy came up to me and gave me, you know, I was very young, pretty scared, gave me lots of shit for wearing a NoFX t-shirt.
You know, I had the exact same thing happen. I'm not even kidding you.
And I he walked away, and I turned around and I said to my friend, like, this sucks. I turned around, I saw him, the back of his denim jacket, he had a NoFX patch on. I was like, Another time, I got shaken down by someone wearing an Operation Ivy energy cap. They shook me down for like coins that my mum had given me for soda waters at the gig.
Jesus, yeah. I mean, it's the type of thing where I think punk oftentimes actually just somewhat mimics the high school microcosm, and it's people who were picked on that then go on to pick on others, and you know, the streak of pretentiousness in punk of people who discovered wide eye and then made it their entire identity is like the corniest shit on earth. So it's I don't know. These people are not my friends because we like the same bands.
Right. I mean, that's it. And I'm not like hating on punk. It's just like people are people. You know, you can be into it. You can have a shared interest, but you know, everyone's different. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
The thought that really got me there as well was, you know, talking about booking agents. I was really into ska punk and Streetlight Manifesto and Catch 22, and was like fascinated by the way the bassist had his own booking agency. And so not only could you be in a band and book your own tours, but you could be in another band, but someone in your family, you know, in that sort of that close-knit friendship group thing, they could book your tours. You know, someone you could work with could be your buddy as well. That was a big thing for me. I was from a really small town. You know, that thing, I wasn't friends with the cool kids at that time. You know, it was before all that.
Definitely. I mean, and that's what is so cool about the DIY ethos of all this is that, you know, without that, I don't think I ever would have went on to direct music videos for bands and again, and started, you know, I've worked on, you know, 3 DIY record labels over time, and without it being like, oh, Fat Mike owns Fat Records, yeah, and a guy from Bad Religion runs Epitaph, and like all these things, you learn that like the enterprising nature of everything. Of, you know, when I think you're, not to say that other people aren't truly punk if they don't create a business lifestyle out of it, but you know, it's the type of thing where when you're passionate enough about it, you figure out how to make it so you don't have to do anything else. And that is one of the cooler aspects of DIY and punk.
What were you brought up like that? You know, you're talking about cold calling and mowing people's lawns and, you know, really getting stuck in, not being work shy. Were you brought up that way? What was your attitude from the people around you when you were growing up? How were you made to feel, and what came naturally and what got instilled in you, do you think?
I don't know exactly where it came from or like who gave me the idea to go door to door cold calling people. My Nana was a really, really hardworking person. She was from London and a lot of her family died in the bombing raids. And then she moved to the States and she started companies. You know, she moved here as a single mother and just like started bossing shit down, you know? And so she was a huge part in raising me. And I think just like labor, you know, like I would go out and do the weeds with her. And she also taught me about writing. You know, she wrote children's stories for me. I was the sole audience member for that.
Yes.
So not only that, I learned creativity from her and I learned about labor, you know, which is like which is what I've built my entire life on, you know? And so I just think that, you know, seeing it, witnessing hard work and witnessing creativity, like gave me the tools to just, luckily I chose to interpret it and try to do it myself, you know?
Do you feel at peace with your balance of all that stuff now? You know, there's tons of things that must be flying around your head on a day-to-day basis. You know, the next tour, the next record, the next people that you're working with, emails flying up your ass all day long. Where are you at with all that stuff now? Do you live a kind of balanced life?
No, not at all. Not even in the slightest. I mean, right now, currently, I am at the studio producing a record for somebody else, and nice. I'm anxiously awaiting good news or bad news via text about a tour that I'm very excited about and praying happens. You know, it's just like it is kind of this like crawling under my skin feeling at all times for the most part of just like wanting the next thing, wanting to, you know, I just wanted to keep going. And, you know, we released a song yesterday. And so obviously I was obsessively checking my phone over that. It's not a healthy balance at all. I definitely have figured out clocking out a little bit better, which is actually partially just me getting high and then being really afraid to check my phone. Because the worst thing ever is getting like a work email on you because my brain works in a way it's like I need to respond right now. Yeah. But then I'm like, no, I'm high. I shouldn't respond to it. Like, and then I'm really afraid of my response. It's just like this really, that's the only way is like, I'm like literally so afraid to look at my phone. And that's when I clock out.
Do you often do that thing where you look back at an email you sent and you thought, should I not have said that? Or should I have added that other bit that I'm thinking?
Yeah, always. I mean, being on emails with labels is like the scariest thing because there's like 20 people on the goddamn email and you're like, I hope that these people that are forced to deal with me because it's their job, like, I hope that they don't hate me.
Do you have that? Like this is a pretty direct question. Hey, totally fine if you want to veto and pass it. But I go through different stages of coming home from a party or coming home from anywhere and just like having this crushing, like repeating this scenario of a conversation I had where I may or may not have sounded like an idiot.
Oh, all the time. I mean, but the thing is, the solace in that and what I try to convince myself, and I've listened to other people talk about, is what do you think about the most? Yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so the person you spoke to, what are they thinking about themselves? You know, and they might have the same thing where they're like, I wish I had responded differently. So it's trying to shake the shackles of self-awareness is definitely a very painful process, but you should feel comfortable in knowing that for the most part, people are probably only thinking about themselves and not about you at all. So
it's interesting to think of that schism when you're an outgoing socially person, you know, when you're a confident person. I'm a confident person. I imagine you can be a confident person in a group. It's funny that kind of conflict, that, you know, paradigm of being confident but also being self-aware. That's a funny mix.
Yeah, I mean, confidence and self-awareness kind of run very counter to each other, but especially you add drinking into it, and then you're like, you know, that little bit of looseness, and you're like, oh God damn it, you know. I don't black out, but if ever I did, I don't think I'd ever be able to rebound emotionally from a social interaction. Because I would be like, I just don't know what happened. I don't know.
101 part-time jobs, 101 part-time jobs, 101 part-time jobs, 101 part-time jobs. You're interesting, right? Because you're on Loma Vista, an established label. You've got an established team around you, and you're a punk band. So you're going to be playing those. You're going to be like on kind of both sides of the water there. You're going to be doing the big festivals and the main stage at early, nice afternoon slots. And then you're going to be doing the skate park in South London with Concrete Culture. I mean, I hope that happens. But you see what I mean? Is that funny, trying to like look ahead and trying to leave gaps into the things that happen last minute sometimes?
I mean, it's the type of thing where it just, what happens. And like, we're gonna go play a Generator show in the desert this weekend, and it's really just about I don't know, it's what happens. It's really it is, we take what's brought to us and try to generate as many cool things of our own. And sometimes the big thing that I'm concerned about for the future is like when things have to cancel for other things, and like that's something we haven't had to do yet, and I'm nervous that those things, they start creeping around, and you're like, don't want to piss people off.
It's a pretty like amazing time now. I was just considering what the shows that you're doing with rival schools coming up in the UK and in Europe, and it's great that you have those types of bands. They're one of a few, but there are these punk rock and hardcore bands that are like, that have been doing it for 20 years longer, and you're like, cool, this is great, this is a sustainable thing to do. That's like for me as a fan, that's like, I want to be 50 and going to shows, because there's definitely an idea that's placed upon you when you're younger that punk and hardcore is a young person's game. It's right now is a very cool time.
I think so. I mean, when I was coming up, I was so sure of the idea that you're completely washed by the time you're 30. It was like, no fucking way, because at the time there was not the same. There was people like Walter who have done so many different scales within hardcore, but it was at the time that I was really developing like the ideology of like, 30 you're washed. It was like a lot of dudes that fucking played in youth crew bands that didn't make records that were worth being a classic. You know what I'm saying? Like, It was a different, I was thinking of very local shit, and I'm like, yeah, clearly if you're over 30 playing in some hyper local shit, but even then, like, that's still cool because that's just them following their passion. It doesn't mean they're a great artist. It means they're somebody who has passions and hobbies, and that's dope too. It's just like, when you're young, you love the hyperbole, and then as you get older, you realize there's not as much, it's not grounded in reality.
It's myth, right? I mean, it's funny how age can play such like an impending factor on the way we feel. I kind of burnt at 27, like shit hit the fan for me when I was 27. And in the same year, within a year, it turned a new leaf, and I felt like fucking born again or some shit. I had a flat that I could afford just about. I was on the dole. I was on the government support. That was like a good thing. I was like, this is like, I'm standing on my 2 feet here. I feel okay. I am myself right now. This is cool. It's interesting how, I mean, I'm 32 now, and I feel younger than I did 8 years ago in lots of ways.
I mean, that was me through the pandemic, where I just assumed, a lot of things were either winding down or whatever in my life, and I was gonna move into a new chapter. And I did move into a new chapter with Militarie Gun. I just didn't anticipate that chapter being music at the time. Like, I just didn't foresee any of this happening. Yeah. So it's the type of thing where you just never count your chickens before they hatch. And when you're young, again, the everything's so much more black and white, and endings are endings, which they never really are. And it's just like you grow up and see the world so differently, and it still changes constantly.
You know what? Bringing it back to the fucking namesake here, 101 part-time jobs, but it's like work plays such an identifying factor in all of our lives. You know, the first thing you used to do when you meet someone new, you know, at a party, your friend of a friend, it's going to come up pretty quickly. You know, what do you do? How do you do this? Have you felt pretty good at feeling like and saying, you know, yeah, I do this. This is what I do.
I feel self-conscious saying it. You know, it is an interesting, because it still is not like completely true. You know, like at the same time, there still is side hustle. Like nobody's living off of this full-time situation. You know, like we still have to do so many other things to be able to sustain the touring schedule. But yeah, I don't know. It is interesting. I mean, I lived for such a long time wishing that I could, you know, I had the hang up of the identity of it all, of being like, well, this is what I do with like basically 100% of my time. But when someone asks, what do you do? You know, I'm like, oh, I film city council meetings, or I'm a truck driver, you know, like those answers. I felt more comfortable answering them than like the passion thing, because the passion thing seemed like I felt like a loser. I don't know. It was like a weird hang up that I had surrounding it. And it still does kind of feel that way at times, where you're just like, you know, it's a fairy tale. I don't know.
The tours that you've been on since you were 17, you must have met so many other people, playing in bands with those people, all the other bands that you toured with. Did you do you remember talking about this kinds of stuff much? I mean, I never spoke to anyone I was in bands with about this. Now I'm a bit older, and on reflection, it's like, that's information sharing. You know, that's like understanding how we can do it best.
Well, I was always so curious about like the business side of music, like throughout my entire time. And then I made friends with people like Patrick Kinlan from Drug Church, and joined Self-Defense Family for a while. Nice. And kind of was put around a lot of other type of people that were involved in various business elements of music. And I always was the big question asker to people. I wasn't big on like sharing, you know, like whatever my ambitions were, because I've always felt like my ambitions sound ludicrous. So I never have been one to try to unload them on people that I'm not incredibly close to. Because I think everyone would think that I just assumed my own perception of the way people viewed me throughout all this was I was this really unassuming character. And so now what is happening now is kind of surprising for people. But I just spent the whole time studying, basically.
Dude, you've Slumdog Millionaired it.
That's the goal. And, you know, it just was, I've always just been more keen on just asking questions of people who are farther along and more established. And then now, you know, I try to share it with what I've learned with as many people younger or not as far along as myself.
You know what? It seems like such a simple thing, but asking questions is fucking the elixir, right? That's the magic of so much. You know, you want to start a record label? Ask someone how you do it. You having relationship troubles? Ask someone about it. Ask Reddit. You know, like just ask, because yeah, there's plenty of times that I've been soul searching and I've been just like crushing myself inside, and like it's like, I think a big part of the answer is going outwards. Now, that's not to say it's easy, but that's life.
Definitely. And at one point, you know, I started a podcast with Patrick from Drug Church called I Don't Care If This Ruins My Life. That was literally us talking about we called it a schemes podcast. It was like about ambition and business and art. And we were trying to because I was like a lowly, you know, music video director trying to make it further in the film industry. And Patrick wrote comic books. And so we both talked about like what we're trying to do. And as far as also being in bands and talking about booking agents and all these like different things, and trying to share what we were learning and doing with other people. And so it is asking questions. And that was, you know, me asking him a lot of questions and trying to figure out the path.
Hey, experience has got to be one of the most valuable things. You know, 15 years doing this stuff, that's experience. You can't, some of that stuff, you know, a lot of that stuff you can't learn anywhere else. You know,
No.
you found out yourself the hard way or the easy way.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, you have the embarrassment of failure, but that's like also the most forward propelling entity there is.
Patrick's comic books are so ace. Your music videos are rad. How deep did you get into making music videos? Like how long a time frame was that? I mean, look, you're probably still thinking about it, right? But like, how deep did you get into it? What was the deepest you got into it?
So I moved to Los Angeles to direct. Like that was my goal, was to get further in the film industry, and somehow I accidentally did it with music instead.
That's funny.
But I mean, I got to a point where I was making music videos between like $10,000 and $20,000, which is like still fairly low budget. But now basically I've just translated that experience into making music videos for Militarie Gun and having opinions and the ability to make something better, even if someone else is making it. Because recently I've been handing off the music videos to other people because I want to also see my friends see what they can make for the band, you know? I mean,
the Will Logic video is ace.
Yeah, our guitar player did that one. And that one's like, you know, meant to be, it's not like an actual music video, but, you know, he made that all himself. And we filmed it on the ferry we filmed me on the ferry from Brighton to freaking France. Cause we were just like, all right, we have a couple hours, like, let's get this done.
You look like your hoodie falls very cool there. That's like a Gap commercial.
It is a Gap hoodie. So,
and the Very High video is ace as well. I mean, I grew up loving One Tree Hill, the OC, that stuff. There's millions of us out there that hits.
Good. I mean, and that was again our friend Mason Mercer. He directed that video because we ended up kind of in a time crunch, and I was like, dude, I can't. I'm gonna kill myself if I have to be on tour in pre-production on a music video. Can you step in and help me? And he pitched that idea, and couldn't be more excited about it.
Have you done much with skateboarding? Are you interested in skating?
So skateboarding is where filmmaking kind of started, which I think that's how like a ton of people are. You know, I bought a camera to film skateboarding originally, and then I started kind of making like silly videos. I mean, one of the first non-skate videos I made was like Henry Rollins spoken word with me filming my little brothers being weird, you know, like,
yeah.
And then eventually, you know, like,
are you the oldest?
I am the oldest. Yeah. Oldest of three. And, and it just like slowly grew into music video as time went on. And, my proudest crossover with skateboarding is we made a music video for Super Crush, called I've Been Around. And, it was a shot for shot remake of the intro to, Goldfish by Girl Skateboards, which Spike Jonze did. And we sent it to Girl just on the Crail Tap customer complaint page, because I was just like, hey, we made this thing, like, please don't make us take it down when it comes out. We're huge fans, like, blah blah blah. And the next day the art director for Girl gets back to me and is like, this is awesome, like, it's making the rounds of the office, like thank you for sending, the song's cool. And like 2 days later, Sam Smythe emails me. He's like, hey, just showed this to Spike, and like sent me a quote of what Spike said about it. So that was like,
what did he say? What did Spike Jonze say?
It was really simple. Just like, oh, they did a great job. Like this is really awesome. You know, like,
yeah, like 5 words from Spike Jonze is worth a fucking, that's huge. That's unreal.
I mean, my life was made in that moment. And it was really cool because, I mean, it wasn't my idea to do that music video. It was Mark from Super Crushes. And like, so it was this cool thing of, you know, him being a huge Girl Skateboards fan and me being a huge Spike Jonze fan. Yeah. And then like kind of getting this recognition from them and having them be excited about it was, I mean, life making at that time. I think I was like 25 or 26. It was cool.
Spike Jonze is an inspiration of like how to be, you know,
it's just following passion. And that's what I always try to say is, you know, like, I don't know where my life and career will take me, but I'm going to go wherever is most passionate, even if it's not making the money or, you know, those things. Like, I thought that I was going to be directing, but clearly I was more passionate about music, and that's how I've ended up here you know, like, and I think that seems to be the lifestyle that he has, where it's just like, you know, he's going to act in the new Damien Chazelle movie, and that's going to be the only thing we're going to see him in for 3 years because we have no clue what the fuck he's doing. Or he's going to run Viceland for a period of time and executive produce all these shows, and like, I don't know. And he's a co-owner of Girl. Like, it's just the coolest life, coolest career. I mean, there's nobody who's done it better than Spike.
I mean, Where the Wild Things Are, it was years after watching. That was a big film for me and my older brother. We connected a lot about that film, watching that film on the holidays. And I read fairly recently that being John Malkovich came about is because he had a connection with someone to John Malkovich, and they were in Europe at the same time. And Spike took him out for dinner. And you could just see them over having an Italian pizza and pasta, and Spike Jonze being like, right, I got this idea.
Yeah.
That's ace. You know, music videos are so interesting because they can sometimes make a song not as good as the song is, but they can definitely make a song better.
Yeah, I can elevate it. Yeah.
What's your vibe on that? Have you like ruminated about that stuff? Do you think a lot about that?
Definitely. I mean, it's the type of thing where ultimately I go in caring about the band's identity more than my own. And so it's like about serving whatever the song is and trying to elevate it instead of it being about this pretentious, like, oh, well, I want it to be this. And I think that it's really easy to get hung up in your own identity and up your own ass, specifically as in art, where, you know, at the end of the day, like, I really do view it as you're making a commercial for the song. You know, hopefully it is artistic. Hopefully it does mean something. But at the end of the day, like, you're trying to sell the song to somebody. And that's the whole point.
It's interesting how, you know, we talked about skateboarding. There's fashion in skateboarding. You know, there's Supreme, there's a look, there's fashion in everything, right? Even if you're against me and you're wearing all black in circa 2001, that's a fashion, right? Black jeans, black t-shirt, black. You know, I find it, I've never been very good. It doesn't come naturally so much to sort of be well dressed or, you know, have a good eye for that stuff. But I do find it fascinating how those things cross over to enhance music or enhance a film, enhance a feeling or a sound.
Yeah. I mean, it's the type of thing where, you know, you want it to be one end-to-end thing. And I think a band like Against Me, it says it all in the name, you know, dressing in all black is a very antisocial thing to do. It's against something. It's, you know, like, so it all is all an extension. You know, it's something I ended up thinking about a lot when it came to Military Gun, because it was like, oh, how do we carve out our own identity among everything else? Because identity is really important. You know, I think specifically at this moment in culture, it is a huge part, you know, like the whole culture war is being waged on the concept of identity. So the idea that you don't dress a certain way or do a certain thing, you know, like when clearly everyone is so motivated by the concept of identity, and maybe the identity is that you don't dress well or whatever, but it just is whatever you want it to speak to something greater than one thing.
The first band I think of is the Hives.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking like Military Gun, looking like the Hives. What kind of, do you remember any of the sort of off the scratch list of those ideas?
No, I mean, the thing is, it just is intuitive. It just has been intuitive. You know, you follow whatever seems right, and not, because if you're trying super hard, you might not be doing something genuine, you know?
Everything takes time.
You got to take time to learn to dress, because I definitely did not. I was not a good dresser, and you know, some people might be listening to this now, but you're not now either. But you know, it's the type of thing where, you know, you slowly learn, and the way my brain works is I get obsessed with one thing, and then I get over it, and then I get into something else. So, you know, what I'm in love with one day, I'm going to think was corny 6 months from now. So
yeah, you know, I was thinking a lot recently about, you know, some people are going to think you're very cool. Some people are going to think that you're a loser, you're an idiot. I mean, that's a pretty interesting thing to come to terms with.
Yeah, I mean, I think I lived this huge portion of my life caring what quote unquote cool guys, cool people that loved more obscure music, and they're like, it really worked on me for a long time, like letting more or less de facto losers, and now in my current way of thinking, have this oppressive force of like, this or that is not it, and you're like, why did I don't even like you, and like what is the point of this, and that's kind of, I've been talking about it more and more, like this kind of anti-cool guy stance, because I think that the mark of cool guy is being callous, it is being cold, it is being cynical in a way that is like really truly anti-art, because art can come from a cynical place, but I think that really great art comes from the place of like having your heart open and letting something freely flow out of you. And I think the inherent stance of being cool is posturing, and when we came out, my goal was I wanted to wear something that I thought looked cool, but I wanted to also dance around and jump around like an idiot and make the audience feel comfortable doing the same and being goofy. Because one of the coolest things on earth to me is watching old Fugazi videos, and you're like, that shit is goofy. Number one, that shit is
DC videos.
Goofy. It is so goofy, but you know what it is? It's fun. It's free. It's artistic. It's everything that you hope to have in the world of music. And fuck these losers that are just, again, fuck posturing. It's not about that. It's about, I would so much rather have this open experience to the world than have such a preconceived notion of X, Y, or Z, and with that being said, like, I don't know what people say our band sounds like anymore, but it's like, I used to have this like really damning view of pop punk, and now a lot of these people who like our band are these people who love these other pop punk bands. I'm like, well, clearly I have more commonality with it than I ever thought I did. And I don't know, fuck it. Let it ride. That's all it is,
101 part-time jobs. 101 part-time jobs. But I like to kind of end these or round these off with a good work fail story.
Oh, I got the best. Straight away. Well, when I saw the podcast title, I was like, finally, I think this is going to be somewhere for me to talk about my years of truck driving, which I'll say were the best thing ever for me, because one, I worked with a very cool coworker who plays in a band called Sunspots. He used to be a band called Criminal Code, and he showed me so much incredible music. And at the same time, he showed me things like J Church at the same time as he showed me PIL and Hairy Pussy and fucking Jesus Lizard, so it was this, and then he would make me mixtapes and I'd listen to those in the work trucks. And then my whole life was listening to music in work trucks. But biggest fail came from the fact I drove 26,000 pound trucks delivering ladders and fencing to Home Depots. And we used to have to do all sorts of crazy illegal shit, straight up. I was 18 years old when I had this job. Straight up, not a job for an 18-year-old.
What kind of illegal stuff?
It was just overweight trucks, driving through the middle of the night so the scales would be closed.
You're not supposed to drive so many hours in a day, right?
Definitely that as well, but we didn't even keep driving logs. Like, we did everything in a way as to avoid the law. Which worked. Some miraculously worked. Okay, so I didn't know how to drive stick shift because I was an 18-year-old, never drove stick shift, was put into a 26,000 pound truck and was taught stick shift for 30 minutes and then told, go. So my life for a couple weeks was absolute and utter terror, because it was me crying at intersections, stalling the truck, just feeling so incompetent and so stupid. So one day I have this delivery in North Seattle and I realize I'm going the wrong way because this is also pre-GPS. So I used to text Google like 566 like 5 whatever it was like, and I would just say directions from, and I would just look at the address I was at or the cross streets I was at and to the location I had on my paperwork. And so I would just be looking at my old brick of a phone for the directions as I'm driving a 26,000 pound truck stick shift through North Seattle. Like it was absolute hell. I was so terrified 24/7 and realized I'm going the wrong way. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to turn around. What I was not very aware of at the time was clearances. As far as head clearance. I was not aware of the concept of head clearance. I surely was, it was mentioned in the training, but it's the type of thing you're just not thinking about when you drive a go-kart Honda Civic around most of the time.
There's enough to be thinking about.
And I'm barely struggling through driving stick shift. The other part of this was I really needed to pee at the time. So I had my pants just fully undone. I go and I turn around and I pull into a gas station and the truck slams to a halt because I hit the clearance. I wedged myself under a gas station awning.
Hey, that's a tough awning.
Well, and the lucky thing was that I wedged myself under it instead of just hitting it. So I didn't damage the truck at all.
Great.
I just wedged myself under it. I've definitely fucked up the awning. And if I just if I was better at driving stick shift, because what I thought I did was I thought I stalled it as I went and just I thought it was a stall, but then I was like, no, wait, the engine's still running. What's happening? What's happening right now? And then, the gas station's owner has come out and he's screaming at me. He is screaming at me. And so I get out of the truck, my pants are undone and I forget that. And then I look, and at the edge of the parking lot, there's a like a barista stand, and I see like the cute barista girl like filming me on her cell phone, and I'm like doing up my pants as I've wedged myself under a goddamn gas station awning. The guy is screaming at me. And so what I end up doing is I let the air out of my tires to back up. And so
that's genius.
Luckily it worked. And I mean, the scariest thing would have been if I just did it and like brought the awning off and it fell on somebody. Like it's very possible I could have killed someone in that moment. And so the gas station owner, so I get it out and he's like, let's get the cops here, blah, blah, blah. And I give him all the paperwork, and then he fills out a little on binder paper. He has a thing. He says, it's written out. It says, I admit this was my fault with a signature line. And I go, no, I'm not signing that. I'm 18 years old, but I know for a fact you do not admit fault.
That's smart that you didn't crumble under pressure there.
And he's like, all right, I'm calling the cops. And I was like, okay. And so I'm just buying snacks from him, like waiting for the cops to show up. And I did my due diligence. I gave him my ID, gave him the insurance for the company and everything. And the cops came and was like, nah, he's good to go. And then...
it's insurance, right?
Yeah, it's insurance. I mean, and yeah, for insurance purposes, you never admit fault. So it's kind of a fucked up part about reality because I clearly was at fault. But I would say that's my biggest workplace fail.
That's a good one. I mean, it sounds like you took that with like a bit of confidence there.
No, I mean, it's my friend's dad's company. It was probably my first like 2 or 3 months working there. Like I was like, I'm fired. And the worst part was I lived with his son. So it was like, his dad is going to fire me. I have to keep living with him. This is going to be so awkward.
Mate, thanks so much for being up for this. It's all about storytelling. That's what I love. My dream is to basically make a mashup of VH1 Behind the Music and book your own fucking life.
I mean, I think you're a great start here.
So there he was, Ian Shelton from Militarie Gun here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Originally from June, that episode. which I think the album came out around then. Hey, cheers for listening. If you like this episode, if you like this show, make sure you subscribe, leave a rating or a review. All that stuff helps me get to the cream of the crop and helps me get more brilliant guests. Going into 2024, I'm going to keep on doing more of the same. Thank you for joining. Looking forward to it. Hope everyone has some happy holidays. You get some alone time. You get to smell the flowers. All the good stuff. All right. See you later this week with another rerun. Looking at it now, it might be one with Kingsley Hall from Benefits. So come back in 2 days for that. Cheers.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.